Wednesday, January 18th, Mountain Line Board of Directors meeting. The Board of Directors, just so you all know, may vote to hold an executive session for the purpose of obtaining legal advice from Mountain Line's attorney on any matters listed on the agenda pursuant to the ARS, Arizona Revised Statute. The executive session may be held at any time during the meeting. Executive sessions are not open to the public pursuant to the Arizona open meeting laws. Shall we call the meeting to order? Roll call.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the board. City of Flagstaff, Lori Matthews, we are expecting her. And alternate Deborah Harris may or may not join us. Coconino County, Geronimo Vasquez is expected. I'll keep going. Judy Begay, the county alternate, is with us.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. City of Flagstaff, Miranda Sweet.
I'm here.
Thank you. MAU, Josh Mayer.
Here.
Thank you. And CCC, Tony Williams.
Present.
Thank you. We do have several guests with us. Our attorney, Scott Holcomb, is on the line.
Good morning.
Morning,
We have
welcome.
Good morning. Dave Wessel with Metro Plan is here to do a presentation.
Good morning.
We have Michelle James from the Friends of Flagstaff Future. Michelle, are you still with us?
I am. Hello. Good morning.
Great.
Morning.
Good morning. And Steve Ice with Northern Arizona Healthcare.
Also here. Good morning.
Good morning. And we do have Supervisor Vasquez joining us right now. And I am told Erica Mazza with Gentera has also joined us. Thank you, Chairman. Oh, I'm sorry. Lori Matthews is joining now.
Great.
I think we're good to go.
So Board Member Vasquez is signed in.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, I just got out of another meeting.
Great.
Thank you.
And
Okay.
Councilmember Matthews as well.
Great.
Yes. Good morning.
So we will move to agenda item number 3, the safety minute. Sam Short.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. The January safety minute is on railroad track safety. So railroad tracks are a common sight in our community and in many cities across the country. Trains are responsible for many injuries and property damage incidents every single year, and Flagstaff is no exception. While incidents involving trains are severe, it is often the action of other parties that contribute to or cause the incident in the first place. The following are some general safety tips when around railroad tracks. Always look both ways prior to crossing the railroad tracks. Pay attention when near the railroad tracks. Do not wear headphones, use a cell phone, or anything else distracting while nearing or crossing the tracks. Never attempt to speed through a crossing to avoid an oncoming train or the crossing arms. Always obey the safety signals at railroad crossings. Never walk on railroad tracks unless you're at a designated crossing. And give trains plenty of space when they are near. An average train traveling at 55 miles per hour could travel up to a mile before stopping after the brakes are applied. Experts advise that a 30-car train hitting a car is the equivalent of a car striking an aluminum can. The odds are not in our favor. Please use these tips to help yourself stay safe near the railroad tracks. Thank you and welcome to the January board meeting.
Great. Thank you, Sam. I can assure you that all of us will do everything we can to avoid getting hit by a train. So call to the public, just so everybody knows. We value public comments. If you wish to speak to the NAPTA Board of Directors at today's meeting, complete the form below or submit. Make sure I read this correctly. If you wish to speak to the NAPTA Board of Directors at today's meeting, complete the form below and submit to the clerk of the board. To allow everyone an opportunity to speak, comments will be limited to 3 minutes, and speaking time cannot be transferred to another. If you are with a group, please designate a spokesperson for 10 or more people present at today's meeting may be given up to 15 minutes to speak. Your name will be called when it is your turn. And when it is your turn, be sure to spell out your name, since most of us are in a virtual environment, and the organization that you represent. Do we have any public comment today?
Chair Williams, I believe our guests are here to speak on an agenda item, and there's no other guests in the room.
Okay, great. Then we will move on to agenda item number 5. Want to welcome new board members. Heather, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair Williams. Sorry, we're getting messages from somebody that needs the Zoom link to participate in public comment. Kate's gonna help you with that. Okay. I'd like to take a moment to recognize that we have 2 new board members as an outcome of the City of Flagstaff's recent election results. Lori Matthews is joining us today as one of our 2 primary board members on behalf of the City of Flagstaff. Thank you, Lori, for joining us. We're looking forward to having you with us. I've enjoyed conversations prior to this meeting with Lori, and we really look forward to the participation and engagement she is going to offer. Additionally, we'd like to welcome Deb Harris. Deb will be serving as the new alternate for both Miranda and Lori on behalf of the City of Flagstaff. I know she's not in attendance today, but we look forward to the opportunity to welcome her and engage her in future meetings. Thank you, Chair Williams.
Thank you and welcome, Lori.
Thank you so much. I am happy to be here.
So moving on to item number 6, approval of the minutes. Do we have a motion to approve?
I move to approve the minutes from November 16th, 2022.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Sweet. Thank you, Director Vasquez. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries. All right, item number 7 on today's agenda is Stride Forward Regional Transportation Plan, and Dave Wessel is here to present to us today. The floor is yours, Dave.
Thank you. Okay. Rhonda, should I use the?
I put it up there.
Up there, okay,
Sorry.
great. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I'm David Wessel with Metro Plan. I'm the planning manager. I'm here to present on Stride Forward, our regional transportation plan. We're coming into the home stretch on that. Today, I'll give you a little bit about Metro Plan. It's timely since you have a new board member here. Briefly on the plan requirements, the scenarios we put together, policies and public involvement, and how we're going to wrap up here. Oops. So our planning area boundary is the same as yours. The area outside of Flagstaff, Belmont, Winona, Kachina Village, and Donny Park with the city in the center. Our vision is to create the finest transportation system in the country. And we have some great partners to help us do that. Our mission is to leverage cooperation to maximize financial and political resources for a premier transportation system. And we do that, let's do this by going forward here. with our members, and you see many of them, we share many of the same members. We work very closely with you all here at Mountain Line Transit and the Department of Transportation, as well as University, the county, and the city. We are mandated as a federal organization to do a regional transportation plan every 5 years and look ahead 20 to 25 years. So we're looking out to 2045. And this is really a description of how our region is going to invest its funds over the next 25 years, particularly its federal funds and funds to be expended on our major roads. As a little reminder, past plans have been very critical in helping Mountain Line get off the ground back in 2000, and building projects such as 4th Street Overpass, many Flitch trails, and here recently in 2018, the current plan adopted in 2017 was really the underpinning for the vote that went out in 2018 and is supporting projects like the Lone Tree Overpass. But a lot has changed since 2017. COVID, the hospital relocation is being planned. Inflation has hit very hard. The approval of the propositions I just mentioned, and then the city declaring climate and housing emergencies. And from that, the carbon neutrality plan. And it's really that carbon neutrality plan that was kind of an action point for us for this regional transportation plan update. Well, it didn't transfer to the format here very well, but as we move forward from the Flagstaff Regional Plan through the current Regional Transportation Plan Blueprint 2040, we have a decision point, and we are moving forward with a fiscally constrained plan that we call Onward. It's looking out to 2045, as I mentioned. We're required to be fiscally constrained, but there are new policies in place, carbon neutrality plan being one of them, which require new decisions, new plans, new policies, and new funding. And we examined that, and we call that Upward. And that looks out to 2030, which is the horizon year for the carbon neutrality plan. What's it going to take to get us there? So a little bit more on those two plans. After 2045, we're looking to increase population jobs between 20 and 30%. The VMT, or vehicle miles of travel target set by the carbon neutrality plan, it's about 2.4 million miles per day. If we stay on our current course, the Onward plan, which looks at maintaining status quo of both transportation investments and land use plans, the exception being the relocation of the hospital, it keeps us within the available budget, but we see that vehicle miles of travel, or VMT, goes up by 460,000 miles per day. So we missed the mark for the carbon neutrality plan. And the Upward concept, we hit that mark, and we do it in a number of different ways, shifting where people live and work, increasing investments in bicycling, walking, and transit. And notably, we are not limited by available funding. So there are costs involved with doing all of that. How this worked, when we concentrated where people live and work, we successfully reduced VMT by 85,000 miles per day using our regional transportation model to measure this. So we call that community design. Transportation investment reduced it by another 133,000 miles. And then the big win, if you will, was travel demand management, looking at incentives and disincentives to change how we travel, the modes that we use, where we work. And so we get over that 460,000 by a view and hit the target. But change requires change. We need to change policy, the way we do business. We need to change the money, how much we spend and where we invest it in order to fulfill the Upward concept. So one of the policies in community design is changing where we live and work. We looked at several different options, focusing in the downtown or maybe a corridor, and we landed on this one as the most effective, concentrating jobs and growth in the downtown and the 4th Street intersections there. We looked at several different levels from 25, 50 to 80%, and noticed diminishing returns. And so 50% seemed to be the most practical. By concentrating where people live and work, it's shorter drive trips, which is less VMT, and it also allows people to walk, bike, take the bus, which is also less VMT. Investment, more buses, more often, more places, more bike lanes, more sidewalks and crossings. As far as work from home, we see, based on a couple of factors, we see about a 3% reduction due to COVID. You can look around the room here and a lot of you are sitting at home, you're not here. Work from home, we see about a 3% reduction. Only about 30% of the jobs in the county are estimated to be eligible or able to be worked from home. And only about 16% of all VMT is due to work trips. So you can see those two factors bring that down. However, a strong travel demand management program can increase work from home. And here's some of the types of programs that we're assuming in our estimations will be done and will be done well. So adding bike and pedestrian amenities such as shade structures, bike share, scooter share, car share, incentives such as car share parking. We have transit passes, so we'd expect those to be expanded. Same with van pools, voluntary commute programs, marketing, ride share, and the one disincentive that can be actually effective in reducing vehicle miles traveled is parking fees. So we're assuming all of these things are in place and are working well in order to hit that 207,000 reduction. It's a big lift, but we're seeing that others are successful. So part of the carbon neutrality plan, CNP, goal is to have walking, biking, and transit account for 34% of the work trips. We're currently about 14, maybe 17% pre-COVID. So that's a pretty big jump to go from 14 to 34. However, in analysis of Western university towns, roughly our size, if we look at the best in walking, the best in bicycling, the best in transit, and add those up, it exceeds 40%. So others are doing it, we can too. As far as the VMT target, I was talking with somebody from Boulder not too long ago, and they shared this with me. They've had a VMT goal to hold it to since 1990. And you can see here in 2019, a modest increase, but they've been holding it pretty well. You can see that trend line on the far right. And you can look at that person's per day has gone down from, or travel per person per day has gone from 15 down to 12, and they hope to get it down to 7.3. So, it's possible. I hope this gives us hope that we can move in a positive direction. There we go. So I want to go through some policies very quickly for you. As we put these together and looked through existing policies, it's clear that equity and sustainability are an underpinning for both current policies and will be going forward. We categorized all of our policies. I want to give a nod to Kate Morley for helping us get to this, into these three categories of funding, transportation, and community design. And basically for funding, we're going to seek to do as much upward as possible. And then in the upward policies, really focusing on the pedestrian, bicycle, and transit users, both in our transportation system design, as well as designing communities that allow for more safety, comfort, and convenience for those types of travelers. Here's just some examples in community design. So we're looking for more and taller buildings downtown and along 4th Street, 15-minute neighborhoods where people can access shopping, dining, other services within 15 minutes, and street networks with small blocks. So we're really taking existing policy and amplifying them and targeting them. Some examples on transportation, focusing on complete streets, diminishing the priority for single occupancy vehicles, addition of high frequency transit service, and then this idea of 15-minute connectivity. In funding, we need to seek to double transit revenue and revenue to quadruple pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure service. And then incentives for driving that growth into the downtown and 4th Street. So there's a total of about 50 policies. All told, these were just some examples. So how much will this cost? Doubling transit, again, this is through 2030. That's the carbon neutrality goal, so important note. To double transit service is roughly doubling what you have today. So $12.5 million today, $25 million per year going forward. Quadrupling bike and pedestrian facilities. So this is infrastructure. That's a lot, $53 million per year. And that's in addition to Prop 419 funds. As a perspective, Prop 419 puts forward about $29 million for ped and bike facilities over 20 years. So that's very large. You see a check by Travel Domain Management. Metro Plan has received formula funding for the carbon reduction program. We're going to put that towards hiring a travel domain management coordinator, and there'll be some additional funds beyond that for program implementation. I will note, if you recall from those 10 items, what's left over is probably not going to get all of those 10 items going, but at least we have a head start on this one. Community design incentives, we did not put an estimate to that, but there are both regulatory things, investment, targeting your investments that can drive community design the way that you would need to. So what would that tax look like to do these things? You can see what our current tax is and what it would need to be. So we're almost quadruple to put these things in place. There are a couple key caveats there on the right. So our analysis is based on a regional assessment. The carbon neutrality plan focuses on the city. Granted, most of these investments, walking, biking, transit would take place in the city, but it should bring the cost down if we were to focus just on the city. Also, grants, and Mountain Lion is very successful in securing grants, and private development would represent offsets as well. So, but this is to give you a sense of magnitude. We did set out to have a robust public involvement. Our board believes we have met that goal. You can see here, I won't read all these, but we've been out doing surveys, field events, virtual meetings, in touch with a group of 250 stakeholders, advisor groups, and made the rounds to many commissions and boards such as yourself. We heard a lot from doing all of that, a lot of support for sustainability and equity. Some important notes there from as we looked at people making less than 25,000 a year. Seemed to be quite a few mobility needs unmet and security concerns while walking and biking. For those under 49,000, they are likely to travel less when gas prices are high. So we can see they're more susceptible to impacting their transportation services available to them. Minorities favor transit and more likely to support its increase. In talking with our stakeholders, and granted this is far from a random sample type survey, but many thought that the VMT reduction strategies that I've covered here today would be good for social connections, physical and mental health, as well as good for business and housing affordability. From our random sample survey, we did see that 94% recognize climate change is real and 74% support action. So there is a basis for moving forward. On the funding front, we did not ask a lot of direct questions on funding. So I cannot give you a perspective on that. However, when asked, a lot of people feel that transit, pedestrian, bike investments are lacking. That there are safety concerns associated with maintenance of pedestrian bicycle facilities, particularly in the winter. So there's costs involved there. That they would favor investments in pedestrian bicycle on roads like Milton, even if it slows traffic down, even if it slows them down. That was really interesting, the response there. And then we did ask a question about transit service to the county. We heard a lot about that, as you have on the board over the years, and asked if they would pay some in county communities, generally a plurality. I don't know that we saw a majority, but plurality of city and county residents. So that may be of interest to you as you move forward. Transportation, again, these are what's called in the industry stated preference, not revealed preference. So people are generally a little more optimistic in their views in this situation. About 77% of people spend their time driving today, and they would like to see that go down to 57% in the future. You see general satisfaction with roads and streets, and a fair amount of dissatisfaction and neutrality with other systems. Again, the year-round management of sidewalks and bike lanes. I put this next point in there because it is somewhat contrary to what we've heard by and large, but the chamber desires more roadways and increased vehicle miles traveled. Clearly see vehicular traffic tied to economic success. In terms of it quadrupling those pedestrian and bicycle facilities, we're going to need to retrofit existing neighborhoods with those. Again, this is to achieve the upward concept, and that may meet some opposition, just kind of some resistance to change. But we do know that transportation investments, perhaps not as effective as land uses, as land use changes, but they have a more immediate impact. Land use changes are going to take a long time. I'm going to sidebar back to that low impact of the land use changes. If you look out to 2030, that's only about a 10% change in the population and employment by 2030. It's just not enough to move the needle. And so land use is going to help in the long term. It is a long-term strategy. Speaking of land use in terms of community design, a lot of support for walkable neighborhoods. On the flip side of that, currently people see distances as too far to walk or ride. So changing that land use, aligning it with infrastructure is going to be important to overcome that. Multifamily housing was seen as important for meeting affordable housing needs, but at the same time, people that have expressed dislike for 5 to 6 and even 3 to 4 story buildings see them as a possible source of nuisance traffic and as being less safe. But 40% of the smaller 2 to 3 story apartments could fit in the neighborhoods. So in my experience as both a land use planner and a transportation planner, good neighborhood design is something that we really need to focus on. And that includes the addition of things like parks, landscape streets, transit access to help mitigate the impacts or perceptions against higher density. Yeah, so this is my last slide. We are looking to really wrap up that last line in April. We're going to go before our board March 6th with a draft and put it out for public comment for 30 days, and then formal adoption in April. We were planning on a board meeting in February, but due to board members' travel, we're going to just have a longer meeting in March, it looks like. So this is not as accurate as it was. Thank you for your time, and I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Dave. Do we have any questions from the directors? And Heather, was there somebody present there that needed to or had comment on this item?
Yes, we've received a request from Adam Shimoni to make a public comment on this item.
Great. Adam Shimoni, former chair of the Mountain Lion Board of Directors. Nice to have you here today.
Good morning, Chair Williams and members of the board, staff, public, partner agencies. It's great to be with you in a capacity of which I feel so much lighter in as a member of the public. Sorry, I'm not turning my camera on because my reception is bad, but I did want to tune into today's meeting, at least part of it, and especially this conversation. And just want to acknowledge the hard work that's gone into this, Dave, and your efforts with the public. So excited to see Stride Forward progress and the presentation you gave. And I fully agree with, I think everything you said. I really do. And I really appreciate your comments around infill and design and whatnot, and how we build forward to reach our goals. And I love using Boulder as an example. I think they're a city that we can really look to as a leader and for inspiration and to learn from. My only comment for the board and for Dave while you're here is just, 53 million per year. Although I think that money is critical and important, I do think a lot can be done for a lot less in terms of creating a holistic network that will really move the needle in a really big way. And so I know that cost can really kind of deter people and create maybe even a level of fear or concern around where that money is going to come from. But I'd like to encourage you and the team, if possible, to also consider what are the bare bone needs to create a holistic network that is also maintained, as you spoke to so eloquently, that really allows that big shift to occur that we're talking about. I don't think it's 53 million. A lot of it is, really political will and paint at the end of the day. But just wanted to throw that out there. That's my only comment, but really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all and be here with you today, and appreciate it, Chair and board members.
Adam Shimoni, thank you for your comments today. Much appreciated. Other comments from board members? Dave, do you have anything you want to add to the comments that Adam made?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Citizen Shimoni. I agree that yes, the 53 million does seem high, but there are other factors involved. We do have working with sustainability, an electrification plan, and as we see more zero emission vehicles, that'll help move the needle. Investment in charging stations and others is not large. There are regulatory things that we can put in place. And in fact, we have a transportation toolbox being developed with a good vehicle miles traveled calculator available that helps us assess the impact of development. And we're working with our consultant to develop performance measures. And it's going to be a good, better, best type tool. Because one of the things that we see, and I think this is maybe in keeping with Mr. Shimoni's comments, is best practice in North America today is not enough, that we need to do more. And so our good, better, best format for this effort will be good is kind of what we're doing now. We're actually, Mountain Line is won awards, Foots Trails have won awards. We're doing well, we're doing good. Best practice is better. And this is really going to be pushing our consultant to look beyond North America to Europe, and even to stretch their imagination to see what could we do that would be best. What could we do to stretch ourselves and maybe move the needle, not just for us, but show the way for others. So this has really been a pleasure to work on this project, just because I think it is important. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you. That was wonderful.
Yes, thank you, Dave. And I would just like to add, it's one thing to have best practices, but it's another thing to just have a plan in place and to strive toward fulfilling that plan. So I do appreciate all the work that's gone into this, and look forward to future conversations about Stride Forward in the weeks and months to come. Thank you, Dave. Any other comments from the board? All right, we'll be moving on to action item number 8. The next 3 items on the agenda are action items. And so this action item is to consider an updated letter to the city regarding Northern Arizona Healthcare's relocation. And I believe, Heather, you're going to lead us in this conversation this morning.
Thank you, Chair Williams. I am going to lead this portion of our meeting. I know we have several participants that wish to give public comment. I'll start with a summary of where we're at and then open up for those public comments. So a little history on where we're at or where we have been in conversation with Northern Arizona Healthcare about their relocation onto Beulah Boulevard south of town. As you may recall, the proposed location does not currently have any transit service. So we originally proposed transit as a part of that relocation in 2019. We became more involved in a real public ask for support from NAH to fund the service, starting as early as spring of 2021. The board of directors asked us to send a letter to city council in January of 2022, asking for a transit plan to be required as part of the rezoning efforts. Since that date, we have worked with NAH to consider types of transit, including the evaluation of shuttle service or microtransit versus the bus. And we really landed on the long-term solution is fixed route. It's less expensive as the other models, and it really provides for the right level of service that a development as significant as Northern Arizona Healthcare should generate. Additionally, we considered whether a route could be designed to serve both Northern Arizona Healthcare's new campus and Flagstaff Airport also does not have transit service. While we could align these into one route, they are very different trip generators. And so it is not our recommendation to create a route to serve both of these locations. We presented several funding ideas for Northern Arizona Healthcare to consider and explore. One of those was a transit district that could share cost of this transit service across developments, businesses, and homes in that district. We also spoke with the city of Flagstaff about that option. We then proposed an agreement based on the recommendation that we share the cost with Northern Arizona Healthcare for fixed route service. We presented an option that was proportional share of cost based on the distance from the closest existing stop to the hospital's new location. The proposal did include Northern Arizona Healthcare funding the expansion until such time as other funding, presumably a transit tax expansion, could be available. I'm here today to report that we met with Northern Arizona Healthcare in late November, and we have finalized a plan for transit services. NAH has stated that their current revenue projections do not have the capacity for funding the transit as requested, and we have agreed to a message that we would seek funding from the community. I then spoke at City Council on December 6th to share that same agreed upon message. Mountain Line will pursue funding for expansion of service from the community, and that until funding is identified, transit will not serve the proposed NAH location. A couple of reminders: Mountain Line cannot set taxes or create other public funding mechanisms. We are dependent upon the city of Flagstaff for doing that. We can and will recommend expansion of the existing transit tax to City Council and request that the city place a question on the ballot for voter consideration in 2024. That said, we recognize that tax expansion is not a foregone conclusion, and that if that tax were not passed, transit to NAH would remain unfunded. Although this is not the answer we had hoped for when we set out on this conversation, we feel like we reached our objective of being transparent with the community about what we can do. We feel like we have a clear message to the public that expansion of services is not possible without expanding public funding. Our team will continue efforts to diversify funding through a mix of public and private sources. All that said, today's request is that you authorize us to send a letter to City Council to address our original request for a transit plan as sent in January of 2022. A draft of that letter was sent to board members via email this morning. And that's all I have, Chair Williams.
Thank you, Heather. Do we have any comments from the board, please? And Heather, was there anyone present that was going to make any comment this morning on this item?
We do have several members of the public present to comment. I think I would ask the board to consider comments from Steve Ice with Northern Arizona Healthcare first.
Thank you, Heather. Good morning, Steve Ice, Vice President of Construction and Real Estate Development for NAH. Appreciate Heather's comments and appreciate all the discussion and talks that we've had with Mountain Lion over this last year. I am here to answer any questions anyone might have. I don't personally have a prepared statement on this, but wanted to make sure I was here to be able to discuss it with anyone who had any questions or issues.
Thank you, Steve. Others present for comment this morning, Heather?
We also have Michelle James of Friends with Flagstaff's Future available for comment.
Great. Michelle?
Hello. I wanted to thank the president and the board of directors. I appreciate being able to speak briefly to you this morning. My name is Michelle James, and I serve on Mountain Lions TAC and am executive director of Friends of Flagstaff's Future. I encourage you to send an updated and detailed letter to City Council regarding Mountain Lions' efforts to reach an agreement with NAH to provide public transit to the proposed new location of the hospital. Mountain Lion staff have negotiated and worked with NAH for 3 years in an effort to forge a partnership to provide funding necessary for a new transit route to the new hospital location. Many in Flagstaff were extremely disappointed to learn at the December 6th City Council meeting that NAH had chosen not to provide funding for a portion of the cost of the new route, as outlined in the very reasonable agreement proposed by Mountain Lion. The new council and mayor should understand the history of Mountain Lion's negotiations with NAH. The new council deserves to read the proposed agreement with Mountain Lion that NAH refused to sign. The new council needs to have full understanding of the impact and consequences on the decision made by NAH to not enter into partnership with Mountain Lion. The proposed new hospital and ambulatory center is in need of a long-term public transit solution. The refusal of NAH to fund any part of this necessary new bus route is a significant hit to our community's goals. Providing zero public transit to the new hospital is not in line with the city's goals to provide equitable access to healthcare. Impacts will be felt most by those who continue to be most affected by Flagstaff's increased housing costs and our changing climate. While a transportation tax is the only remaining solution to providing a new transit route to a relocated hospital, council should understand that a decision to put forth this tax is dependent upon their approval, and that there are risks and potential unacceptable consequences of asking the community to pay for the full cost of this transit route if rezoning is approved. Thank you for your consideration, and I hope that you will send a letter to council. Thank you.
Michelle, thank you for your prepared comments. Really do appreciate that. I see that there's a few others in this virtual world that have their hands up. I'm going to go in with Josh Mayer first, board member, director, Mayer.
Mr. Chair, if we could have the members of the public, I'd rather hear what the member of the public has to say before I have a couple of questions. But I'd like to hear what they have to say first.
Sounds good. Adam Shimoni, you're on if you'd like to speak.
Thank you, Chair Williams, and thank you, Mayor. It's good to see both of you and be with you again today. I want to thank our partners at NAH and Steve, who's on the call today, for being here and all the work that's gone into this, and Mountain Lion's leadership and efforts over the years with NAH on this project. This has been a long conversation leading to this point, and I've been involved in many of the conversations with NAH leadership, Steve included, obviously. And I do agree that a project of this magnitude needs public access. For me, that's been clear since the beginning. I think we've all thought that was clear from the beginning, both the board of directors with Mountain Line and also the city council community. I think we all can agree that a regional hospital needs a public access that is, equitable. But I think my comment I want to make is that I'm a little disappointed and concerned about us of the city and Mountain Line moving forward without a plan in place. I'm open to us going out as a community to the public for the tax, but as was mentioned, that's not guaranteed. And I do have a little bit of concern with that, but I also understand that NIH just might not have the funds to fund this on their own, although it is a cost share with Mountain Line as it's being proposed. But I really don't feel comfortable moving forward without a plan in place, and would encourage the board to issue a letter of support to the council of what's being recommended here today. Yeah, this is, I'm not, to Steve's point about questions, I'm curious, how do we move forward? I don't feel comfortable with this, and I almost feel like you probably don't either, given how big and important your project is. How is this our plan? It just doesn't feel right to me. So I would be curious to hear his thoughts on that at some point, board chair. But just wanted to express my support for the letter and also concern for such a massive project in our community without a clear plan. I also just mentioned, if NIH did step up and find a way to partner with Mountain Line on this in the short term, as soon as funding was found or made available, whether through grants or taxes or other partners, they're off the hook. We can swap them out, so to speak, and add more money in. But until I guess I just have concern with us just blindly moving forward without a plan that is really clear and concrete. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Adam. Director Mayer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I have a couple of questions for Mr. Ice. Now, I've heard folks say that it's the hospital's refusal to fund transit. Can you detail a little bit about what the hospital has agreed to include in development in regards to helping to facilitate public transit in the future?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Director. So yeah, I think we are hearing the word refusal. And I think what we're proposing is partnership. Partnership not only in making sure our design accommodates bus service, including building the bus shelters on campus and making sure our road network is built up to standards to meet the needs of public transportation in the future. I also think it's worth noting that the hospital itself isn't planned to open until 2027. So we do have time to work on a plan to make sure this is funded. So I think the conversation around the dollars piece of it, I just like to put it in context, even with the proportional sharing, what we were asked to commit to now for years into the future was a dollar amount that equates to more than 12% of what our profit was as a company last year. So it is an enormous percentage of dollars for us as a nonprofit, and all of you understand that we're a nonprofit, and that we refund all of our profit back into the company, and those dollars are directly correlated to wage increases for our staff, which is our community, and then upgrades to our medical systems and technologies for us to care for the community. So to be able to commit to what I said, 12%, this year it will be far more than 12% of what our profits are for the year, is just not a tenable situation for us.
Uh, Thank you for that. And you actually answered a couple of additional questions that I had written down here regarding revenue and how that's invested back into the hospital, really to help support advancements in technology and really help support regional equitable healthcare. So I appreciate you sort of expanding on that.
Thank you. And I think as we discuss access, we are in full agreement that we should be providing equitable access. Maybe obviously not in full agreement on how it should be funded, but we already do that from an equity and access perspective. We just in this last calendar year gave over 700 Lyft rides to community members who weren't able to get to locations after their treatment. We gave over $100 million in charity care to the community, and the main governing principle behind our over $800 million capital investment into the community and region is to continue to have access for our growing region, because at this point we are already deferring between 5,500 and 6,000 community members to hospitals in either Phoenix or Las Vegas because we don't have space for them. And I think in Dave's presentation earlier, you saw we are only planned to grow more in the future. So we fully feel that we are doing our part to commit to access and care for the community.
And thanks for that. And you actually, again, answered another question that I'd had there in terms of your deferral rates. And you'd mentioned the amount of dollars and the number of trips, I believe, that you've provided for free to help support that. Once the new location comes to fruition in 2027, is that something that the hospital would plan to continue?
We would, and we will. We are committed to making sure that all of our patients have that access. A lot of the rides we give are to the shelter. And even if we provided bus service down to the new location, it wouldn't get people back to the shelter. So we will continue to do that. We also are in constant communication and coordination with paratransit, as well as we are the owners of Guardian Air and Ground Traffic. So we do think we provide those investments into the community. And I think it's worth noting that we also serve a much broader community than just Flagstaff, with about 2/3 of our patients coming from outside of Flagstaff proper.
Right. And so obviously those folks that are coming from outside of Flagstaff wouldn't be using transit anyway.
That is correct.
So I know that, with the new location, it's hard to, make guesses in terms of what the ridership might look like. And it's certainly not going to be exactly the same as what it is now of people riding Mountain Line to access the hospital. Have you done any guesswork or any estimation as to what the ridership might look like in the new location? And that's sort of inclusive of employees, staff, as well as people.
Yeah, fair question. I haven't. My assumption, and I think there are probably people on the Mountain Line side that would be better served answering this question, is that it is mostly employees that are taking public transportation to the hospital. If you think about it from a health perspective, most people don't wind up at the hospital via bus. Most people wind up at the hospital via ambulance and/or through the emergency department. The majority of our patients actually come in through the emergency department and not through the front door. That is true of most every hospital across the country. In addition, any of our patients that have access, which is state-funded Medicare, Medicaid, their benefit from the state comes with ride service to and from their appointments. My opinion is, as an overall percentage of patient volume for us, it is an extremely low number. I would assume probably less than 1% of our patients come via bus in either location.
And that was my assumption as well. And so, in terms of, how I see public transit in regards to this discussion, I see it less of an equity issue for this, although, we certainly ultimately want transit to serve the new location, but it's less of an equity issue in my mind. So I appreciate the response to my questions, Steve. And so I did want to remind the board that I did relay some concerns about the letter that was going forward at our last meeting. And so in looking at this letter that's coming out now, I think it strikes a good balance in communicating ultimately the need for funding, but doesn't put the hospital directly on the hook and doesn't put any restraints on. It doesn't communicate that, well, if we don't have transit, then we're not going to be supportive of the hospital's development at all. And so I appreciate staff's time in sort of tweaking the language and really revising the message that's going to council. And so with that, I'll turn it back to Mr. Williams. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Director Mayer, and really appreciate your great questions that you posed. Next, Vice Chair Vasquez, do you have any questions or comments?
Yes, thank you. If I can get my mute to go off. All right, well, thank you. I appreciate the conversation. First off, I did want to say that I am also concerned about moving forward without a plan. I know the hospital's not coming online until 2027, so there is time, but things can get lost in the shuffle over that time if there's no plan put in place. And so I wanted to know what are some of the options moving forward, and if NAH is unwilling to do the request that Mountain Lion was proposing, what is something that NAH is proposing to moving forward?
I think our proposal as it stands right now, and I do think that there's obviously more discussion that has to be had between Mountain Lion staff and NAH to understand what this support structure looks like, is to partner with Mountain Lion in getting public support and getting public understanding of how public transportation is critical, but should be funded from the public and not private sector. So I think we're committed to continuing to work alongside them. We have also discussed that we would be willing to stand up a smaller shuttle service in the interim if we could get some understanding of what patient population that could serve and benefit. So that is something that we are willing to do. And as I stated earlier, we already feel the majority and a very high majority of our patients are being taken care of from a transportation perspective in some form or fashion.
Okay, thank you. And as far as I know that the hospital won't open completely until 2027. But when would if we were looking at public transportation to the hospital, when would that be required? Like, when would be the earliest that would need to be put in?
Well, for the hospital itself, it would be 2027, because that's when we would start serving patients at that location. Our ambulatory care center, which is outpatient physicians' offices, that does open in 2025, but our outpatient center, and physicians' offices, et cetera, is much in line with some of the other outpatient treatment centers that are around the city of Flagstaff that do not currently have a transportation system that operates near them. So Flagstaff Bone and Joint and some of the medical office buildings that are up on the mesa, it's more in line with the kind of care they provide and not critical care inpatient services.
So if I understand right, NAH's plan is to go ahead and instead of help subsidize for Mountain Line to produce a fixed line that goes to the new hospital site, your proposal would be to use shuttle services from the current hospital site to the new site moving forward.
Not necessarily from the new site. We had some discussion about a shuttle service that came from the last stop nearest to the new location, which is right near the Walmart, and provide point-to-point shuttle service from there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Vasquez. Director Sweet, you have a question or comment?
Thank you. This is a great discussion. I'm wondering, Heather had brought up a transit district. Is that something that we are exploring and might be on the table?
If that question's for me, I would say yes, that is something that we would be willing to explore and willing to help support.
And Heather, do you have anything to add to that?
Thank you, Director Sweet. So in our conversations, we had brought it up both to NAH as well as City of Flagstaff staff regarding it as an option. I'll go back to Mountain Line cannot make decisions around those funding sources, but we are certainly happy to provide the research and knowledge that we have available about how a district could be set up. So we feel like our role is to support NAH in the city in making that determination. We think it is a great option because it ensures costs to be shared across the various aspects of a development and not always be on the responsibility of a single participant in that development.
And I agree that it is an avenue that we should explore, and I'm not sure when that can fit into all of this, but I would like to keep that on the table. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Sweet. Any other comments from board members? So Heather, I think at this time, we're looking to, I think the staff recommends that the Board of Directors consider sending an updated letter to Flagstaff City Council regarding the Northern Arizona Healthcare's relocation. Is that correct?
Yes, Chair Williams, that is what we are seeking as our action today.
Before I make a comment to put a motion forward, I'd just like to comment that the nature of the letter is I think aligned with the comments that the board made back in December when we were first considering doing this, and I appreciate it that it recognizes that the Mountain Line, we consider ourselves a partner with NAH and that we are wanting to continue to work with them moving forward. So I do appreciate that. And I also what I like about the letter is that it's really clear about our role in the process and how far we can go when it comes to the tax items that are most concerning to funding this need. So with that, I would welcome a motion to approve the recommendation from the staff.
I'll move that we send that the Board of Directors send an updated letter to Flagstaff City Council regarding Northern Arizona Healthcare's relocation.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
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 All those opposed? signify by saying nay. Any abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you very much, everybody. Great discussion.
Thank you.
Let's see.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to make sure, I apologize, I was having trouble getting my mute off. I wasn't sure who made the motion in the second. I want to make sure Rhonda got that information.
Oh, thank you. I believe it was Director Mayer that made the motion and Director Sweet seconded it.
Thank you.
All right, number 9 on our agenda, another action item, Flagstaff in motion, a community transit plan, and I believe Busy Collins is going to present to us at this time. Busy.
Yes. Thank you, Chair Williams and members of the board. Very excited to bring the Flagstaff in motion plan to you today. I am seeking adoption from the board. And the overall purpose of Flagstaff in motion is to identify the best way to provide and fund Mountain Line Transit services. And this is with an eye towards a tax package in 2024. However, what you're reviewing today is not the tax package. It's recommendations based on known needs and circumstances for the next 5 years. It's a living document. For example, when we adopted the current 5-year transit plan, we weren't aware that the hospital would be moving. So, making sure that this plan captures anything that may arise in the next year as we refine the recommendations for our tax package. And today I'll be identifying how we got here, present highlights of the plan and next steps. I will remind you that there's an executive summary in your board packet, and the full document is available online through the link provided in the staff report. There's a little delay. I see what they've had trouble with. So how we got here. It's been 18 months since we kicked off this project. You can see what we've done listed here, some good public involvement. We did have a citizen advisory committee of community leaders and organizations who represent people who ride transit. And so we had them follow us through every step of the way and making sure that what our recommendations that I'm presenting to you today make sense. And we're in stage 4. We are finalizing the plan and seeking adoption. So long road to get here, and very excited to be here today. And so this is the highlight of the transit vision, just plan highlights. And I want to start with a few definitions, industry terms, so we're on the same page. So frequency is how often a bus arrives. Across our system, average is about 20 to 30 minutes currently. And so that could be increased to 8 to 10 minutes, like our Route 10 that runs on NAU campus. It could be decreased to 60 minutes, which is what the Cheshire neighborhood and Fort Valley Road currently have. And there could be different times of day that there's different frequencies. So span is the hours that we provide service. So currently on weekdays, it's about 6 a.m. to about 10 p.m. Weekends, it's about 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And within that span, we have peak periods and off-peak periods. So peak is when we provide the most frequency out on our roads, and off-peak is typically evenings and weekends. And that is when we provide lower frequency service. It's gonna react. Okay, so here's our transit vision. Overall, we are recommending that buses arrive more often to more places for longer periods of time, Monday through Saturday. And I'm gonna go clockwise around, and you can follow. I'll start in the top left there. So as I mentioned, currently Route 5 has 60-minute frequency all of the time. There is no peak service. And so we are recommending to add peak service at 30 minutes, Monday through Saturday. Next to the right, going clockwise, we're recommending to make the Gemini Road deviation that's currently only on school days, mornings and afternoons, a regular part of every trip with an infrastructure improvement, allowing us to make a westbound left turn from Mesa onto Forest Avenue there. Going to the right, clockwise still, increase Route 7 off-peak frequency to 40 minutes Monday through Saturday. It's currently at 60 minutes off-peak, so that's evenings, weekends. So increasing that to 40 minutes. And also, let's see, the red and the green routes, that's our red is Route 66, green is Route 3. We're recommending to increase those to 20 minutes during peak period. And they're currently both at 30 minutes peak period, and then increasing off-peak to 30 minutes, where it's currently 60 minutes, Monday through Saturday. The bottom items, bottom right items, the 3 gray boxes apply to the entire area. And they're not very geographic, they're more span of time. So the first item is late night service, enabling bus pass holders to utilize a trip home between midnight and 2:30 a.m. Provided by taxi companies, Uber, Lyft, and partially paid for by Mountain Line. Longer off-peak evening service to 12 a.m. Monday through Saturday. Like I mentioned, it's currently about 10 p.m. on weekdays, about 8 p.m. on Saturday. So very big increase there. Increased Saturday service level to match weekday service. Currently, we have Monday through Friday schedule and then a Saturday, Sunday schedule. And we're looking to have a Monday through Saturday match. And then a Sunday would be the current weekend schedule that we have. And then the far left, bottom left item, adding coverage to new areas. So the dashed line are all new routes. The top is the West Historic Route 66 going over to Woody Mountain Road. In the south, we have the new route to serve the new NAH facility, and also a new route that goes through Ponderosa Trails community, neighborhood, and connects to the airport. So some coverage, some frequency, some span, a whole lot of improvements identified here. And I wanted to circle back, all of these recommendations really had excellent board and TAC involvement, guidance along the way. In October at the advance, we did bring a lot of very prescriptive improvements for them to select and really help us prioritize what became the final recommendations here. And I just want to talk through any 3 main changes that staff did bring back from the October advance and really trying to follow the intention to refine the recommendation. So the first item was a prescriptive item of having all routes end at 11, where the intent was really having later evening bus service. And so staff really thought that the 12 a.m. Monday through Saturday better captured the intent of that. Also increasing Saturday service. So there was an option of just having a partial Saturday schedule. Staff really thought that having one more schedule would be confusing. So really having it match the weekday schedule all day long made a lot more sense for public communication. So we changed that to Saturday matching the weekday. And the last item was service outside of Flagstaff city limits. So we had our 4 bedroom communities, Belmont, Fort Valley, Dooney Park, Kachina Village, and Mountain Air, really prioritized within the city sales tax funding in that exercise of the October advance. However, it would likely not be funded through city sales tax. At least that's been the conversation so far, something to continue refining as we go through to the tax package. So we really made the service outside of Flagstaff city limits a separate section in the plan, thinking that it would have different buckets. So want to make sure that we still identify those locations, as that is something we hear from the public quite regularly on. So want to make sure we capture that. And here, the next 2 slides are visuals of how this plan really benefits bus riders' access throughout our city. It doesn't do a great job showing how frequency improves people's travel. That's something we're working on for the communicating tax package moving forward, knowing that frequency is going to be a big part of our recommendation. But this is showing how long it takes a person from the downtown connection center that's identified on the map there how far they can go in 15 minutes, that's the darker yellow, and then 30 minutes, the lighter yellow, via walking and transit. And so you can see on the left at noon on weekdays, currently you can get pretty far, 15 minutes and 30 minutes. So kind of across our city, pretty good at noon on weekdays. However, at 10 p.m. on Saturday, our buses do not currently run. You can see that a person is limited to how far they can walk in 15 and 30 minutes. So your access really decreases. And here you can see the transit vision. So on the left is what we currently have, the same slide that you saw previously. And on the right is the transit vision. And really the changes that we're seeing there is the coverage to the new areas. So it's West Historic Route 66, Beulah and Ponderosa Trails in the airport. You can see that you can get all of those locations within 30 minutes, if not sooner. But really that this whole map captures noon and 10 p.m. weekdays and Saturdays. So just really expanding on bus riders' opportunities to take that job downtown, to be able to get home at night on those busy Friday, Saturday nights. So really just trying to demonstrate the benefit to our bus riders. And while not included to guide the plan, the National Association of City Transportation Officials, NACTO, did release a Move That Bus publication as we were wrapping up this plan. And the 4 bullets here really just support the recommendations of this plan on a nationwide level. So the recommendations of NACTO is that transit is a public service, it's not a business, that more frequent bus service means more freedom. People have jobs, lives, and transportation needs outside of that 9 to 5 office hours. We see that in our tourism and our service sectors, our third shift workers in our factories. So there's more than the 9 to 5 that people are needing to travel around for. And streets that work for transit work better for everyone. So just really nice to bring in a nationwide perspective into our Little Flagstaff transit recommendations and see the support there from NACTO. And using these principles, Mountain Line also has some transit supportive actions that are identified in the plan. The first item is to seek new funding and partnerships to implement Flagstaff in Motion. This is not something new. Mountain Line has in the strategic work plan to find partners to implement services. And we just wanted to codify this in the 5-year plan as well. There's a lot of improvements here. They all cost money. We are partners that would love to get together and make things happen. So making sure that we have that door open in our plan is important. Including transit and first and last mile improvements in planning and capital projects. So again, streets that work better for transit work better for everybody, trying to make sure that our streets work really great for transit can very much help the whole community get around. And we currently do participate in planning and capital projects. Again, just wanted to codify that in our 5-year plan. Modifying roadway jurisdictions, codes, and standards to better incorporate transit. So currently it's a negotiation on every single development project that comes through. How do we, how does the development A incorporate transit into their project? That's voluntary. How can we make it a lot easier, a lot more streamlined? How can the development community know what transit improvements are out there? And so trying to just make it easier and streamlined and have some teeth to improve our transit across the Flagstaff community. And lastly is Mountain Line is seeking to work with our local agency partners to adopt this plan and other plans as appropriate. Again, just kind of going back to the previous bullets there, making sure that transit has some teeth, that it's not just a last thought, that it's not a negotiation every time, that really we have expectations that it's out there and aware for our community partners to also know what those expectations are and work with us to try to make transit just the best it can be in our community. So next steps, this is my last slide. So I am seeking adoption of the plan today. After the adoption, we will be establishing a citizen advisory committee to refine the tax question. So you may be confused, we had a citizens advisory committee to help guide this plan. We are revisiting that same group and really making sure that it has the right people in there to look towards a tax package to help us refine exactly what goes in there. A survey of likely voters will also help us refine those questions. And then again, an eye towards a tax package in 2024. Of course, Mountain Line makes recommendations to the city. It's the city's final decision on whether and what goes into a tax package. But we want to be ready about a year from now to make those recommendations very confidently. And so with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Busy, thank you very much. I know a lot has gone into this project and this plan. And I really want to say that I tremendously appreciated the advance back in October and the activities that you had all of us go through in prioritizing routes and frequency of the routes and adding new routes and how to prioritize all that. That was easier said than done. But I just want to thank you for your work on this project. I know a lot's gone into it. More work will continue to go into this plan. And thank you for your time and energy helping those of us on the board better understand what it's really all about. Any comment from directors? All right, without any further ado, because we have a busy schedule today, I would welcome a motion to adopt the Flagstaff in Motion and Community Transit Plan as presented by Busy today.
A motion to adopt the Flagstaff in Motion, a community transit plan as presented today.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, Miranda Sweet motioned and Director Mayer seconded it. Do we have any discussion? All those in favor say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same. Any abstentions? Motion passes. Okay,
Chair
thank you very
Williams?
much. Yes.
I know we're tight on time, but since this will be the last time Busy stands before us all on this project, I just want to take 30 seconds to congratulate her and thank her. She started this project with the support of a contractor. She decided very early on that she could do the project much better, and she has. She has done it with great grace and success, and I wanted to share that with you all today in thanking Busy for this project.
Busy, thank you very much. Okay, item number 10 on our agenda, rider satisfaction survey results. I believe Jackie Lenners is going to walk us through this. Jackie.
Good morning, Chair Williams and members of the board. Thank you. I know we're limited on time due to needing to have an executive session at the end of this, so I am going to go a little bit quicker than I normally would, but please let me know if you have questions. Next slide, please. So today we're talking about our rider satisfaction survey, which we conducted in October of 2022. We typically do this every 2 years, but it was last conducted in 2018 due to COVID. It is an in-person on-board survey where we do also offer an online option for those who don't have time to complete it on the bus. And that obviously was not really doable during COVID. So we did cancel the survey during those times, but have re-upped it here in 2022 to see how things are going. Next slide, please. And one more. Thank you. So in past years, we collected surveys based upon ridership. So we wanted a proportional amount of surveys to the amount of riders a route had. Now, this meant that Route 10, which is the route that goes through the NAU campus and NAU students ride for free, had a proportionally higher share of surveys collected. And we wanted to switch things up this year just to make things a little more consistent, as our other routes are really what serve our community throughout all of town. While Route 10 is certainly important and has a place, and we want to hear from those riders, we wanted to make sure we weren't discounting the data from the other routes and our community-wide riders. So we did, if you can go to the next slide, please. We did even things out a little bit. So you can see the yellow line is the ridership distribution of each route. And then the green bar is the amount of surveys we collected. So most of them are fairly even between ridership and the amount of surveys proportionally, whereas that Route 10 one is just a little bit, significantly shorter, as we really didn't want to weigh it so heavily for Route 10. We also combined the results this year. I know we have a lot of new members here. But when we typically present these results, I would say, here's all of the regular routes and here's Route 10. It's all put together this time. Next slide, please. So looking at overall satisfaction, this is on a 5-point scale with that very satisfied, somewhat satisfied, neutral, somewhat dissatisfied, and then dissatisfied. So you can see overall that things are looking really good as far as our riders' satisfaction. We did add some new things this year. We try and keep this, we try and keep the survey consistent so we can compare year over year, but also things change. So for instance, we had not asked before about the cleanliness of buses and facilities. During COVID, it became apparent that it was probably a good idea to ask about that. So, we do add things in as we feel that we need to. So you see down at the very bottom is that hours of service, and that really just goes with what Busy just presented about what people want out of our system. So this data really does feed into that. Next slide, please. And then here you can see the trends year over year. So the top bar, the yellow bar, is 2022. That kind of brown bar is 2018. And that green one is 2016, the previous last time that we conducted the survey. So you can see, for us, there's nothing here that we see as a concern. We don't see any significant declines in things, from 2018 to 2022 overall, with that kind of 4.5 level of satisfaction. We're very happy with that, especially considering that we did spend the last couple of years with some service reductions and cuts due to either COVID or staffing. So we are overall quite happy with this, and definitely use some of it, like that hours of service, as part of our planning. Next slide, please. Just a few of the highlights, and I'm going to go over these pretty quickly. You do have access to the presentation, but these are all that fell into that very satisfied quadrant. So pretty happy with the results from this. Our riders are clearly happy with what we're doing and satisfied. Next slide, please. And then you see, obviously that lower one with the hours of service that are very satisfied. Next slide, please. And then that lower one with the transit app, that's also one just to let everybody know that we know this is an issue. I won't go into the details. It could take us the rest of this meeting. But we are facing a challenge with that a lot of Flagstaff faces with not great Verizon service and some aging routers on our buses that is impacting our ability to provide accurate real-time arrival information. And we are working on it because we see results like this. We are trying to pinpoint how to best fix that issue. Next slide, please. But overall, between very satisfied and somewhat satisfied, nearly 90%. And so we're very proud of that number. Next slide, please. So a lot of the data that we're interested in satisfaction, but we also collect data about demographics and things like that our planning team uses for grant applications and for, their general planning purposes. Busy, just presented some of it to you. So you see here why people are using transit. Nearly 40% of people are going to work, which is actually down 8% from the last time we did this survey. So I'm not sure if, a lot of these things we could hypothesize about a post-COVID world and things like that. But that was kind of one of the more significant changes from the last time we did this survey. Next slide, please. So the ridership tenure, this is one where we did have a pretty big slide, or pretty big change from year over year. So those who've been riding for less than 6 months is double that of 2018. And I don't know if that is a post-COVID trend. Like, we have some new people who've moved here, maybe with the remote working and things along those lines. Whatever it is, we definitely have more newer riders in our system. So just an interesting thing to note. Next slide, please. And then why do you ride? Obviously, 65% say it is my only transportation, which is, shows the value that Mountain Line has to this community. It's incredibly important when 65% of your riders have no other way of getting around. And that's, where we step in and we provide a valuable service to this community. And then also things like the environmental, so that climate action, and then the avoid traffic, those were both up slightly as well. So we're excited to see that. So those are more that rider of choice who's choosing transit as opposed to something else. Next slide, please. And then this is just how often people ride. We have nearly 60% of our riders that are riding 5 or more times a week. So a very loyal ridership base, which we love to see. Next slide. And how are people getting information about Mountain Line? We definitely use this to determine how we communicate with the public. Mountain Line website via mobile device being that number one. So we really try to make sure that our website is mobile friendly and that people, if they have their phone, can easily access information. And then we also make sure that we have all these other things available depending on how people want to get information. Next slide. So this is a new question we asked. If Mountain Line were not available, how would you have made this trip? So, you have 30% of people who would have walked. You have 8% of people who would not have made that trip, which is, that's a significant thing. If people do not have access to quality transportation and aren't able to make that trip, what if it is a necessity for something like medical care or something along those lines? So that's, certainly something to consider as we look at, transit not being available to people. Next slide, please. This is a new question we asked about how people get to the bus stop, and it really helps better plan, help our planning team look at stop locations and things like that. Looking at how far people have to travel to get to a bus stop. We look at walk sheds and things along those lines. So this is great data for our planning team. Next slide, please. This was a question of, would you ride more often, or would there be no change in your usage if we made some of these changes? This is also a new question. And this really, I literally got this data and just sent it straight to Busy that she used it for Flagstaff in Motion. I know we're time crunched, so I'm not going to go into a lot of this, but trust that this data here that we received really closely aligns the what people want with what Busy just presented. People that, what would potentially move the needle and make them ride more are the things that Busy presented as part of Flagstaff in Motion. Next slide. And then just some demographic information. I'm gonna go pretty quickly through this. We do have a fair amount of students riding and employed full-time or part-time. Next slide. Can you skip to the next one? And then one more after that. Thank you. All that demographic information we use for grant applications and things like that. But nearly 72% of people did not have a vehicle available to them for this trip, for the trip that they were taking the day that they took that survey. And those without access to a vehicle increased 12% from the last time that we surveyed in 2018. So that's a significant jump, and also just goes to show the value of transit in this community. Next slide. And that is my very quick and abbreviated presentation. I apologize for the light in my office, my home office. It goes from me looking like a Smurf to me being bright, and I don't know how to fix it right now. So I apologize for that, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Jackie, thank you for your presentation. And as you were going through it, I kept thinking how wonderfully it aligned with the information that Busy was presenting to us in the previous presentation. Very interesting, and I think the data shows the continuous improvement and growth and interest in Mountain Lion for sure. Are there any comments from other directors at this time? I know we're strapped for time this afternoon. I don't believe there's any action to be taken on this one. Is that correct, Heather?
That's correct.
All right. Shall we move forward then? Progress reports. How would you like to do that, Heather?
So I'm going to jump right ahead to current events, and I'm going to give you a very brief look at a couple of things. We have a couple of slides in here with anniversaries. So we are celebrating a few anniversaries this month. Sheldon Yazzie joined us as our HR technician about a year ago, and I will credit Sheldon with a lot of the success we've had with resolving staffing issues. He is the front face of all of our recruitment efforts, from the advertisement to the interviews to the contacts with employees, and we've seen a drastic difference in our success rate in getting people onboarded, and so very much appreciate that he is here with us. Robert Hilbers is part of our facilities team. He's a key member of the team that's out shoveling all of that snow that we're seeing all over our community. I'm celebrating my 21st anniversary with Mountain Lion this month, and Jim Wagner is our operations director, celebrating 17 years. Few quick others. Rachel Scala was recently promoted to operations supervisor, but she joined our team as a transit operator 4 years ago. We're very excited to see her success and development. Geraldine Lewis continues to serve as a transit operator and has been here 7 years. And Josh Stone, who you are all familiar with, joined us as management services director about a year ago, but has actually been with Mountain Lion for 4 years. A couple other quick things. We did return to full service this week. We've had some hiccups in getting all the way to full service, but very intentional decisions around snow response. That Route 2 and Route 4 went back into full service on Monday, the 16th, and we're very excited about that. We have delayed some service changes on Route 10 with campus being closed. So I'm going to give you a brief snow response update that will explain some of those numbers. We really did, like I said, regular service on Monday, less Route 10 and our school deviations. With those school closures, it did not make sense to put all of those services into place. But we have been able to perform roughly 82% in our on-time performance ratio, which is departing on time and never leaving more than 3 minutes late, or never leaving early and never leaving more than 3 minutes late. So that's really great if you look at the road conditions and the things that our drivers have been dealing with over the last couple of days. We did cancel Mountain Express this past Sunday, and that was a distinct decision made in partnership with Arizona Snowmobile about the safety of that road. We've had relatively few buses get stuck. That's newer this year. It is in large part due to the Insta chains, which are a chain system on all of our vehicles that allow the driver at the touch of a button to deploy chains on our tires. And it's really prevented our buses from getting stuck at stops, which has been great. Our teams have prioritized snow removal at our connection center and offices. So those have been cleaned up and de-snowed and cinders put down every day with patrol for high-risk areas. We were unable to get every stop cleaned at every break in the storm, but that's what they are doing now. And so we're very excited to report there have been hardly any delays, no workplace injuries, and more importantly, no real accidents that our vehicles were involved in during this snow response. Again, 82% on time, great response by our team members, and a real reflection of the quality of service that they provide. And that's everything that I have for a very quick current events report, reserving as much time as we can for our executive session.
Great. Thank you, Heather, for those updates. And one of the things I do appreciate is just every time you do the anniversaries, the recognition and the fact that Mountain Lion has so many folks that have long tenure with Mountain Lion. It's a great organization. Glad to see that. So I believe at this time we will move into executive session. Do I have a motion to move us into executive session?
I'll move to go into executive session.
I'll
Do I have
second.
a s- All right, Director Mayor, moved to put us into executive session, and Director Sweet was really quick on the second. And so we will move into executive session at this time. Oh, wait, I guess we have to vote, don't we? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes. We will move into executive session.
So it'll just take us a few minutes.
We have everybody back? Great. Okay, so we are right at the end of our meeting today. Our next meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, February 15th, 10 a.m. And so I guess thank you everybody for your comments today. I really appreciate your contributions. Are there any other things you need to share, Heather, at this time? Is she on mute?
Okay, I'll try that again. So the slide on the screen is the tentative agenda for February. If you have anything you'd like us to add to either February or future meetings, please let me know. We're happy to address those items. But I don't have anything else for today's meeting.
Great. Thank you, Heather. With that said, I would welcome a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great